Last Pint Productions presents the New Way podcast. The New Way contains adult content, and new episodes are released most Wednesdays. So back off, man. We're professionals. Listener discretion is advised.
So you were in Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah?
Were you in the shit?
Yeah, I was in shit.
Last night, Darth Vader came down from planet Vulcan and told me that if I didn't take Lorraine out, that he'd melt my brain.
Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me. I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello and welcome once again to the New Way podcast. We break down pop culture so you don't have to. I'm your host, Matt Schenk. Reunited, and it feels so good in the studio by Mr. Benny Dubs.
Oh, what's up?
And coming in hot from the West Coast, Sir Nicholas II of his name, Keeper of the Realms and Lord of House Santa Croce. How's it going, Nicky?
You can call me Little Nicky P.
Little Nicky P?
That's
just your MC name.
That's your DJ name, isn't it?
Little Nicky P on the bike.
That's it.
I'm pretty sure you're featured on the new Atmosphere track, which is dope, by the way.
I've not heard the new Atmosphere track. Put a pin in that.
It's real good.
All right.
Very excited. Welcome.
Everyone thought that Slug was going to lose his edge after he found happiness, but he's proven him wrong.
That's such a sad commentary.
It is so many things.
It's
really true. Like he found happiness and had a kid, and then people are like, yeah, his stuff isn't angry or edgy anymore. He sucks. Well, and the thing was, his stuff was becoming a little more radio friendly. Like like Ghost. Like so many bands have pivoted to actually make money, but it was still pretty good.
I think you should listen to the new track.
Okay, all right, I'll do it.
It's a little on the angry side.
Oh
wow!
It's a little on the. I'm drinking again side.
Well, good. I'm glad that he's back in the booze and hopefully broke up with his girlfriend. Get back to some meaningful
Listen,
hip-hop.
you have kids. They bring you joy for just a little bit of time, and then it goes right back into the anger.
Circle back,
and it gets even more intense.
It's one of those things where it's a cycle. Like every time Beck has made an album, I'm like, did he break up with somebody? Because if he did, I'm buying that fucking album on vinyl. I was like, no, he's happy and he's content in his life. Nope, not buying that Beck album.
I'll settle for a break with the Church of Scientology, but that's good too, I guess.
Well, I mean, if we think that these are inversely proportional things, then we should be getting a killer album from Kanye real soon, like in 5 minutes or so. But we'll
actually 5 minutes from now, I think the new Taylor Swift album comes out. I'm not actually joking. The Taylor Swift album comes out at midnight tonight.
Well, I've
actually been texting with Beth about. I've been texting your wife about this Taylor Swift album, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
behind my back.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Oops, that's not the right. It's not it's not the drop I wanted. I screwed up. I was so close. It was supposed to be good for you, and it was the wrong one. God damn.
Okay.
Anyway,
you're a little rusty. It's fine.
Welcome to episode 194 of The New Way. That means there are only 5 more episodes until we get to our 200th episode, which, as we've let you know, is going to also coincide with Ben's 40th birthday. It is going to be jam-packed full of all kinds of craziness. If our 100 was anything to tell by, we should be doing quite a few good things. I haven't started any of them, I'll be honest, but we've got it. We've got a couple of months here or so, or a month and a half to get there, but we will do it. Also,
I would have written so many songs already, but I can't sing.
Well, welcome to my world, Ben. I have no excuse for my terrible singing voice.
Listen, there's Clarence Carter, there's Fred Schneider, there's plenty of people that made their mark with spoken verse.
Yeah, how about Dylan?
Well,
let's get a little Dylan in here.
How about Wesley Willis?
Wesley Willis, of course.
I mean,
rock over London, rock on Chicago.
I do mean Jacob
Fly
Dylan,
London.
of course.
Goose Island. It's Chicago's craft brewer.
We also we will be working up to that episode. We had some really good feedback on our last couple of episodes, including my inability to say Jackson Hole properly, which many people chimed in about.
Oh, see, you're doing better now.
I'm trying. Ben alerted me to what my problems were about it, so I'm getting there. Also, speaking of fun things, Ben and his family and I attended a musical on Sunday. We went and saw Six.
It was my second time.
Yeah,
6. So that's 12.
That's 12 times you've seen it. I highly recommend it. It is a great one-act, crowd-pleasing musical that kind of goes over all kind of girl pop.
It's a pop show, basically. It's where the 6 different wives of Henry VIII all sort of emulate a certain pop star to an extent. They said that that's kind of how they modeled the characters, but now it's kind of taken a life on its own. But the songs are super catchy and poppy and fun, and they've got some. It looks like a pop show.
There's I hopped on several of their.
Who plays Carly Rae Jepsen?
That is one of the ones that they say is emulated in it. I don't.
For real?
I'm fairly certain
Wow.
one of them is like there's like an Avril and
There's a Britney.
Recent.
Britney
Okay.
and Ariana Grande and Beyonce. It's great. It's super
Coming
fun.
back for you.
I will say from a just from a costume and lighting design, it's great. Like it's really, really well done. And I was following a few of them. I hopped on their TikToks, and the woman that plays Car, she had a great story of being here in Lauderdale for the show and going she had to like get checked out at the gynecologist, and this woman is like examining her, and she's like, "Oh, so what do you do?" And she says, "I'm an actress." She's like, "Oh, are you here for an acting thing?" She said, "Yeah, I'm in a musical at the Broward Center Performing Arts 6." And the woman's like, "Oh, I'm going to be there on Thursday." And she's like, "Oh, that's great. So now I have someone in the audience that's been inside me," which I thought was very, very funny to hear.
Well, I have to say, I was very disappointed when I saw 6, and not because it was bad, but I thought they finally made a musical about Blossom's best friend, and it was.
I knew it was
totally
coming.
off
I
base.
knew it was coming. I had this sinking feeling through the whole setup, and I didn't know which.
That's what I'm here for, Matt.
Thank you,
I'm
Will
here to
Arnett of
interject.
Smartless. We have Will Arnett from Smartless here again.
Y'all have a role.
For anyone on this podcast right now, I would say that Nick, you should like 6 the most.
Oh, I do. I 100%. I've listened to the music on my own. I've just never seen it.
Yeah, no, it's very fun. But the girls, of course, are just singularly obsessed with it. And I'm hoping maybe that'll change a little bit because we have third row seats to go see Wicked.
Whoa.
And
Nice.
big spoiler alert here. They are going to have tickets to see part 1 and 2 simultaneously of Harry Potter.
Oh,
Cursed
shit.
Child in London next summer.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Holy shit.
Going to London.
Yeah.
How the fuck do I get down on that? I want to see
Nice.
Cursed Child.
You want to go on the family vacation with us?
Yes, to London. Are you kidding me? Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just
I'll be your other kid.
Well, we had been talking about doing a big trip next year for a long time, and I was just like, the big discussion is where do we go from London? Because we're going to go to London, and then we're either going to go to Paris.
You fly over London, and then you rock
on
to
Chicago. Yeah,
You already
of course.
talked about it.
it's true. Oh God. You do the Wesley Willis.
So much shtick.
I'm interested in maybe trying to
Rock
go,
and roll McDonald's.
and maybe trying to go to like Ireland, where my family is from, or part of my family is from, or maybe Scotland.
Where you're a lord. You have
playing a little bit of
Lordship.
golf.
I can't promise that I can put this together, but I can reach out to Mia, whose sister lives in a castle in Scotland and is married to royalty and likes to host people there. So let me make some calls.
I mean, I'm friends with Mia too. So.
Yes, exactly. Like let me reach out. That she's probably maybe listening to this. So Mia, call me. I did want to. I talked to Ben briefly about this on Sunday, but I wanted to lead into this from our 6 discussion because it is somewhat interesting to me. Probably not to most of the rest of the listeners out there, but there were 2 major.
So is the? I'm sorry, Matt.
Yeah.
Is the sequel going to be 6-2 or 7? You think?
No, it's 12.
Oh,
We're still going for another 6. Is any more
Listen.
6 jokes? Do we have 6 jokes?
One more, and it's the mark of the
Or is
beast,
it
baby.
6 squared? Because isn't that 36?
Oh God!
Hail Satan.
Yeah, you get 3 6 jokes, the third one, and then Satan shows up. So you got work on your third one. You spread it
I'm
out,
working on
right?
it. All right, go ahead.
So there were 2 cast albums that were recently released for gigantic revival properties on Broadway. One was for Into the Woods with Sarah Bareilles, Philippa Sue, a bunch of other super big Broadway stars out there.
Who is Sarah Bareilles play?
She plays the baker's wife.
Yeah, okay.
She does
that makes sense.
Nobody's going to ever touch Joy Gleason as far as I'm concerned, but Bareilles does a pretty damn good job. And Philip Sue's awesome. But so Into the Woods is released. It is very much like they are doing the 1989 original show. Like they're emulating everything about it. Everyone seems to love it for that. They kind of just leaned into the idea that they're doing that version of the show. And then you have The Music Man with Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster, which should be the biggest slam dunk you can possibly have. And I've heard very mixed things about the show, but the cast album is awful. Like universally, people are losing their shit of like what sound designer allowed this to get released. Like there's first of all, Sutton Foster's not really cast right for that role is supposed to be more of a soprano, and she's more of a belter, so they kind of try to mix it up, but she goes like super flat on her big note at the end of a song, like bad. And people are like, how does this happen? Like, how do you have this cast and people access to, sound engineers and people to make these things, and you get an album where, and Hugh Jackman also really terrible, like a strange accent, like nothing, everything about it should on paper be so easy to win, and it is just awful. And it's they happen to come out literally like the same week, so everyone's just like, how do these two things coexist where one is just so terrible and one is so great?
It was recorded. The sound engineer was the drum tech on Saint Anger by Metallica.
It's like, it sounds like the mix I do of my musicals on some of these. Like it is.
No, your Roadhouse musical is far better mixed than the Music Man.
I will say that Nick's production design on both Election and Beetlejuice is far superior to anything I hear on Music Man.
That's clear. That was more of a dig at you.
I know.
Is that
yes, and it
so
was very, very funny.
It's so abhorrent that even your music is better than that music.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Can we get back to tell me how good my music mixing was?
Okay. Speaking of really good things, before we get into our topic.
Wait, I got it.
Oh God. You can't work it in there naturally, organically.
Well, you just have to come up with the joke, and I came up with the joke, so now I got to say it. I'm sorry, it doesn't have any connection, okay? I'm just following your directions. You made the rules, all right?
Quickly.
You can't get mad if you don't like the way I'm doing it.
Quickly.
If the former vice president was cloned 5 more times, but only allowed access to the same bank account, they would be 6 pence, but none the richer.
Also, if a train left Chicago moving 600 miles an hour.
It's not that dense. 6 pence. 6 pence, none the richer. You love the song?
I got it.
That was a Colin Mockery introduction right there, my friend. That was a Colin Mockery joke.
I was just afraid I wasn't going to come up with a third joke, and I just needed to get it out.
Well, it was well done.
What I mean?
I like my Metallica joke better.
Achievement unlocked.
That Nick muted several times as he worked on that joke in the background.
Well, you're like looking at the equalizer. You're like,
half the joke is the delivery. You got to get the cadence, and you got to practice it a couple times. I put you on mute.
Yeah.
And
my favorite is the explanation.
I'm
of the
playing on the rule of 3 here, guys. I have to
Rule of
deliver.
6.
Rule of 6. Of 6 pence.
Before we get into the topic,
I didn't go Eve 6. You should be happy. I did that for you.
I have to. I mean, do we have any other some pop culture recommendations? Sorry about that. Because I do. I have a couple things.
Yeah, I would. I thought real quick, because we haven't had a chance to do it on the show. Is
I got one more 6 joke. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Is discuss the finale of She-Hulk, and I assume most people have seen this that are listening at this time. I think it is one of those great finales where it makes everything else that led up to it, I think, make a lot more sense and feel a lot more kind of impactful based on kind of going back and seeing where they were heading with the story and what they were like surreptitiously doing, which was essentially just trolling a huge part of the Marvel fan base and like doing it just so expertly and just sneakily, and then getting to the finale and saying, yeah, actually the the villain of this piece is the toxic Marvel fan base and the Marvel formula. Like those are the big bads.
Matt, you've been saying all along, it feels like they're baiting the incels.
I said that
into
too.
Well, you were both very astute, but it's not just your higher than average film intellect. They have come out and said so much, straight up in interviews. Yeah, we knew they were going to act like this, and we wrote it into the episodes, and this was months ago. And just another flex, just like another fuck you.
Well, that's what like people are saying. It feels like South Park, where they're writing an episode during the week and doing these instant things. It feels like it was.
Well,
it
it's
was
not.
being
It's
done
definitely not.
live.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's just definitely great pre-planning.
They're working in those Marvel shows up until like 15 minutes before it gets uploaded to Disney Plus.
I won't say his name, but there's a coworker that we have.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice.
It's clever. Who was like, who is this show made for? Like 4 episodes in. I was like, obviously not you.
So
And
yeah, that's it. That's the answer.
that was like that. There's no better answer than that.
well, and I was watching this finale and just being like, it's wild. Like that was the best way I could describe it. It is so like crazy, and
They saved the last episode for the mother of all fourth wall breaks, and I feel
it's
like they
one
really-
entire giant fourth wall break.
yeah.
and you see little hints of John Byrne's run with which was really like made it the bread and butter. It made its money with those fourth wall breaks. But a big running joke was that Jennifer would specifically call out John Byrne, and he was writing this stuff. She would run and find his office and throw him out a window because she was unhappy with her love life.
Right. Yeah.
She constantly yelled at John Byrne, the guy writing the comics, for like needing to step up his game.
It was a very Kaufman-esque, very Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah, 100%. And that run was really just that 100%, 110%. And I feel like you can't go full Burn from the first episode. They really ramped up to be able to deliver something that was absolutely this whole season of people squabbling about inaccuracies, or this character wouldn't act like this, or this character wouldn't do that.
Well, why is Matt Murdock different in this show?
They worked up basically to the most perfect, page to screen adaptation of She-Hulk that you could possibly make. And the fact that some people are butthurt about it or felt it was unsatisfying. It just, again, Ben, it's like, yeah, well, it's not for you, I guess. Try something else.
For you.
Yeah, and also like
I loved it.
fucking deal with it not being for you. It's fine if it's not for you. I get that. And we're gonna kind of talk about this a little bit on our topic here. But yeah, it was a slow start, I think.
I thought the start was fine. I thought there was a slow middle where it was trying to do the procedural thing, and then it gained some more momentum towards the end. Like, I mean, all the stuff with Abomination was pretty funny, but
I loved all of the fucking magician and the guy that can't die. Like, I thought all of those things. Like, it felt like the Tick to me in the best way. If that had been the show, and it was all that show was, I would have zero problem with that. I think maybe the only issue is that she didn't get to interact a lot of times with, sometimes she was being, shunted someplace else while they were dealing with those kind of characters and stuff. But I love the idea of these minor, these B-list, C-list, D-list villains and heroes that were popping up, left and right in the show, especially the idea that they're all out on the West Coast, which like makes much more sense to me of like, yeah, where are all of like the fucking crazy ones? Oh, they're out in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Well, in the books, Matt Murdock definitely represents his fair share of superheroes as well. But to me, I love the idea that it's still a secret identity for him. and I like the idea that he's kind of more above board in Hell's Kitchen. And then She-Hulk is the lawyer for the stars, the lawyer for the superheroes. I love that delineation.
Yeah,
it works really, really well. The fact that they're on separate coasts is kind of an added pun, but you know what? Added joke. But Ben, what I wanted to ask you is the real question: what did your daughter Luna think about the finale?
Well, honestly, I think that she liked the show in earnest and was a little confused by all the meta shit at the end of the last episode. And she doesn't understand the pandering to the Marvel audience as much. So she was kind of like, huh? When Jen turns and it's just like, how about bringing in the X-Men? Wink, thumbs up. And like, you could basically hear the audience just start clapping. And she's just like, what the fuck? Like, she doesn't understand what's going on there. So I think a lot of that was lost on her. She liked just the trappings of the show and the Jen character and the She-Hulk character a lot to begin with. So she enjoyed it and watched it and was, enthralled through it all, but she definitely didn't have a I
mean, they have so. I think they have so much room for it. I think they also obviously seeing the chemistry between Maslany and Charlie Cox. There's no way she's not showing up in Daredevil. We got 18 episodes of that show. Like she's at. They must be salivating.
I've only seen it once, and we were laughing. I was laughing over a lot of the episode too. So I do probably need to rewatch it. But wasn't there a Cox joke?
Well, there's the smash. She talks about the Hulk smashing, and she's like, they do this, they smash, and then she's like, I smash this, and sometimes Matt Murdock. And I was like, that is fucking amazing.
Oh, I was about to say, I was like, they really missed out on an opportunity to make a Cox joke.
I wonder if that's just the bridge just too far for Disney. Of like, we let you. I mean, I also love that like she calls out Disney as well
I don't care. I got my own show. I got superpowers, and I got some Cox.
Well, she talks about like getting off a couple times and be like, Marvel's been pretty light in that department. They're like the jabs that they get away with.
Yeah,
in this
they get away with
some
good ones.
Are phenomenally self-aware things. I'm sure Feige must have fucking loved being able to address all of the elephants in the room and be like, yeah, you know what? Let's just fucking lean into. We're sitting on an empire. And when for a lot of people, we can't do any wrong. And for a lot of people, we'll never do any right. So let's just fucking call them out on that shit and call ourselves out and be like, hey, we're working on this shit. Like, I love that.
It's like, guess what? If you don't like woke bullshit, or if you're going to call everything woke bullshit, you're just an asshole.
Yeah, it's like, I really wonder, is woke really a thing? Can you really be canceled? Or is it just a buzzword? Is it just, is it just a buzzword for society is kind of changing and ideas are changing and
Grant?
That whole part of it's very silly to me. But Feige, I think, has shown that they're pretty committed to diversifying the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and what's more is they're not afraid to call out toxic fan base, which is kind of amazing and kind of a bigger deal than a small little topic on a preamble on a podcast. It's sort of like do you want Deadpool to call you out in Deadpool 3, then why don't you mind your fucking P's and Q's? Because now we have characters that can break the fourth wall and call you out. That's something that Obi-Wan Kenobi could never do. It's something Rey could never do. And now they can. It's a weapon in their arsenal of just like kind of forcing acceptance, and it truly does become you're either on board or you're off, and it's your choice. But the train's gonna keep going.
Well, we're seeing that shift though. I mean, this is the same conversation we had about the boys of this last season. Like there is a shift in a lot of these artistic properties of these the people behind them being like, hey, we're gonna fucking lean into what we believe and call attention to your hypocrisy. It's gotten out of
control, Matt. It's a decade slow burn since the first Star Wars film. And it's gotten really, really, really bad. And so I kind of commend that because it is kind of the objective right thing to do. Everyone has the right to like something. Everyone has the right not to like something. But I don't know. Stealing people's joy for a little shot of dopamine is just very weird to me.
Well, it's also, I think, what's one of the questions I've often asked myself with, people that are very extreme on one side of the spectrum is like, what happens when all of your art is making fun of you, and all of the artists that you like are making fun of you, and all of, like, at some point you're left with, like, you got to watch like whatever Tim Allen's new show is, and like that's it, and
Well,
then that's
like
your
Ted
only
Cruz.
entertainment left.
That's Ted Cruz tweeting about Princess Bride and saying what a masterpiece it is, and then having Carrie Ells basically tweet back "fuck you."
Yeah, that is the shift that I love to see happening, and like we'll see
Shift
where
happens.
it goes, but I love it. But let's shift for a moment here and do. Oh wait, I'm sorry, Ben. You had stuff.
It's
I'm
a
so sorry.
recommendation.
That all
on.
started by.
So sorry.
If you really like Degrassi, The Fault in Our Stars, and or being startled a lot, I cannot recommend The Midnight Club a lot. I can't recommend the
Or
Midnight Club
being
enough, is what I said.
startled a lot. So this is the series
targeted.
by.
So this is the
Flanagan.
new Mike Flanagan series, which is so different than Haunting of Hill House, Bly Manor, or
Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass. It's a straight up teen show. It's shot like a teen show. It feels like a teen show. It's made for teens very clearly, but it takes place in the 90s, in the early 90s, which is one really interesting aspect of it.
Is it sponsored by TC Tuggers? Nah, I think you should leave.
No.
I think you both should leave.
Anyways,
Patrick will get that joke. He's laughing at home.
He's gonna text
Now,
us
Patrick,
about this
if you're-
next week, and we're gonna have no
when-
idea
when you
what it
get-
is.
As soon as you hear this, text us, Patrick.
here's what I say about that.
There we go.
Anyways, no, I think it's fantastic. It is so different, and it's directed very different, but it does its job very well, and then it makes the kids the stars, and the stars very much are the characters are the drivers of the show in the same way that it is for a teen drama, like for a straight up teen drama without any sort of supernatural element whatsoever. So you have a very clear, by the end of the 5th episode, every character just exactly who they are. Or
I like it.
Or do you?
And it's based on Christopher Pike.
It's based on multiple Christopher Pike books.
Grew up with those. Those were like right above Goosebumps. I
Isn't
wasn't
that
really
the
allowed to
captain,
read.
the original captain of the Enterprise? Christopher Pike. No?
There is
How's
a
it
Captain
feel?
Pike.
You know what? I could have humored you, but you know what?
Anyways.
I fucking didn't.
That was just
I
my
bit my
sorry.
tongue and let you
Continue.
drown. How do you like it?
That was my recommendation for the current episode, just because I have quite enjoyed everything I've seen, and I haven't seen the last
And
two
Ben's
episodes.
been pretty hot on this show, behind the scenes as well. So I can vouch that he is quite. This is not just not a paid advertisement for us, since we don't get paid.
Since I'm contractually obligated to support Mike Flanagan in
That's right.
everything he does.
We stand Flanny in this house.
I
stand.
mean, I do. So I've added this one to my list. I have not gotten into it yet. But do you have any other?
No, that was
recos?
it.
All right.
I just wanted to mention that because I've been watching it by myself at 4:00 in the morning, because that's the only time I can get the house to myself and watch adult content where Beth won't watch it.
It reminds me of my youth when I would get on Cinemax at 4 a.m. in the morning, when it was the only time I could watch adult content and not get in trouble for it. But
Is
I
there still
digress.
adult content at 4 a.m.? It's
And you're like,
taper off by then.
you're like, and we didn't even get Cinemax. It was just squiggly
Yeah,
lines.
that's right. Listen, you gotta
You're
check
like,
that TV
"Oh,
guide ahead
that-
of time.
That's a titty. That is definitely a titty.
Listen, if you believe it hard enough, it's real. So I had a topic that I put forth to the gentleman here a while ago, several weeks ago, because I was watching one of the more recent episodes of The Walking Dead. Yes, I'm still struggling through it's the last season. I just want to
God.
get through it and be done with it at this
God,
point.
it hurts to even like listen to someone talk about watching it. Like,
it's
God.
tough. It is tough.
Why? There's so much good television. You have this list. Whenever I text you and you're like, it's going on the list. It's 32nd in the queue.
I do
and you go and watch Walking Dead.
I make my way through the list in my own way. Listen, because there are some
You're
shows,
a masochist, bro.
No, because there are some shows that I want in the background.
Hurt me, Daddy.
I want in the background while I'm not like entirely paying attention to them, and there's shows that I want to devote all of my attention to. So some of it's background noise. Walking Dead is background noise. I'm catching whatever parts of it I need to get. But I was thinking
Insulting the background noise
about the Negan character and thinking about character redemption arcs, and then we kind of exploded this into a multifaceted thing of talking about redemption. So I wanted to kind of split these things out here at the start of stuff that we can talk about. You guys feel free to kind of cherry pick on which of these areas you want to lean into or not lean into. But I really kind of talked about, characters are very easy to talk about. What characters have a redemption arc? What is too far? Is there something a character can do that is irredeemable and we don't want to forgive them at all?
Negan.
Then you have.
I thought we were talking about redemption movies.
Well, so there's that as well. So then there are movies as well of of stories of redemption. There are also redemption of creatives. So TV shows that were not good that redeemed themselves or that took
paging Mr. Lindelof. Mr.
Exactly.
Lindelof, you have a telephone call.
The poster child for creative redemption. And then you have actors and actresses.
Although, Matt, did you hear that Alan Moore recently wrote a letter?
It had a whole
response?
apparently this all happened when the show was on. It's just now coming out.
Yeah,
I'm not sure why. I mean, also fuck Alan Moore. Sorry, but
Alan Moore is a fucking dickhead.
Alan Moore doesn't understand his own art or what his own art is really saying, and the fact that Lindelof turned it into a race relations study, and Alan Moore's like, no, it was about superhero culture, and I'm like, fuck you, dude.
But you know what the worst part is? That I can almost feel. I can almost feel some sort of sympathy for being protective of a work that it has been lauded as like the best graphic novel ever written, and being protective of that. You could be a jerk about it or not, but I can at least get it. The thing that kills
Alan
me
Moore's
the most,
a jerk about everything, though.
But
Ask him his opinion on anything, and it's a bad take.
To that point, the thing that most annoyed me is that he took most of the time to make fun of Lindelof's heartfelt letter to him, and he was kind of like sardonic, and he started, dear Alan Moore, this is one of the guys ruining Watchmen.
One of the assholes ruining Watchmen. Yeah.
And Alan Moore calls him out, not a good way to start. But kind of called him like embarrassing, and I remember reading that, and the first thing I thought was, this is kind of vulnerable. It's kind of vulnerable. And it's Lindelof explaining why he decided to take something on when he knew the creator probably wouldn't be open to it, and how intimidating it was. And it was very bare. He laid himself pretty bare. And then make fun of that letter, it seemed like a bit much. And
it's also, as a creator of something, I think you have to be able to...
You're in a club with these guys.
You have to also be able to step back and say, so there's nothing... So what I like about the Watchmen series is that it uses Watchmen as a platform to tell an entirely different story and morals,
the safest way,
and stuff.
The safest way to do it.
It's literally just saying, hey, I want to take these ideas, but not really discuss the same themes you had. So there should be no encroachment. It's not like it was something that was done where, unless he disagrees with the political discourse of it, which is super problematic in my opinion. But otherwise, I would be, if I wrote something and someone wrote an offshoot fiction of it that was told that story, I would be so fucking flattered that someone felt that about these characters and figured out a way to slot them into this new tale.
These British geniuses coming up with
Jesus Christ
franchises are problematic.
That's the anti-redemption arc, but that's for that.
Fall from grace.
Go ahead,
I mean, obviously there are other creatives that are out there in the world that have redeemed themselves from something that Spielberg has done it fucking multiple times in his career where it's just like, oh,
He's
yeah,
ready for another one.
yeah, you made a
do it
couple,
again.
you made a couple bad ones, and then all of a sudden there comes a fucking masterpiece.
And
So-
Tom Hanks will have to do it next year.
and sometimes it's with a redemption movie. You know, you never. It's there you go. But yeah, I think whether they're redemptive characters that occur in TV or film, because the thing is, if it's a redemptive character in film, it's probably going to be the main character of a movie, which makes it a redemptive movie. Those are the same things.
Sure.
Unless you're just talking about specific characters. Like one of the things that I thought was kind of funny when you first mentioned the concept is I was like, you know, who's like there are some characters that over the course of a series become redemptive characters because they're just kind of assholes and then they just evolve.
Yeah.
Or they realize the error of their ways and they change. And I'm like, you know, it could be someone is, you know, someone who's just a universally likable character now, like a Barney Stinson or like a Steve from Stranger Things, you know, where it's just like those guys were the assholes to begin with, and like they were played of being like, oh yeah, it's that asshole, you know, and
it's also largely the actor or actress in
100%.
those roles for sure.
Yeah. So
And I think one of the keys is like, you know, if you see their wrongdoings on screen, it takes a certain amount of tact and approach to not make that redemption feel like a gimmick or forced, and that's the problem with Negan for me. I thought watching the show at that point, but the fact that the whole point is one of the first real coming out parties for this character is bashing some of the most beloved characters' brains in this
front of their
gratuitous-
loved ones.
like
And
and then to expect the audience to then go on a journey to have that just act of pure evil redeemed because he said a couple funny quippy things over the course of 17 arduously long
17. So it was
seasons.
6. It was 6. No. So I'm 100% with you because this is the question.
Like
I kind of wanted to.
if you see it off screen, even if it's a murder, even if it's really bad, it's just a little easier because then you see the person start off on the track to forgiveness or redemption, and it's just a little easier. Sometimes it's not necessarily the hackier way to do it. Sometimes you don't do it just because it's easier, just because like the Walking Dead thing, sometimes seeing the misgivings is just gratuitous. I don't know what you're saying by having to see it in front of you, you know?
I think that Matt has a good point that he's about to get to right here.
Well, I'm kind of curious. This is a very deep question for you guys here, and I really want to get into this. And I think there are other redemption things we can talk about, but this was more interesting to me to discuss with you because the two characters that popped into my head for this originally were Negan and Jaime Lannister. And I remember telling Ben the first episode we watched at his house of Game of Thrones and watched Jaime Lannister attempt to murder a child, and I was like, I will never be on the side of this person. That's a child murder. And I think there's something that happens when we are watching properties and we are watching actors and actresses portray these people and they somehow are winning us over by their personality or their magnanimousness that I don't think we translate to our real lives. So let's go back to the politics angle and say, could Ted Cruz redeem himself for you in any way? Could Marjorie Taylor Greene redeem herself for you in any way? Could Donald Trump redeem himself for you in any way? They never attempted to murder a child or bashed anyone's brains in or did any of that we know of, or any of the things that
Actually,
we
we
judge.
quite a few of that.
Any of the things that we have watched
Yeah,
certain
I don't know.
characters that we have now become attached to. Handmaid's Tale is one that's doing it right now with two characters, and I'm going to not go too deep into that because I want to tiptoe around the spoilers. But that was another show that hit me. There's all
Is that a
these
Tiny
shows.
Tim song?
Yes, there are all of these properties that I'm seeing now, and I'm looking at them and
Tiptoe through the spoilers.
thinking if these were real life people that I knew, or even people that existed in the real universe, and I saw their misdeeds on the news or whatever it was, what is my capacity for redemption, forgiveness for them? Like, what do they have to do to overcome that?
Well, first off, it all depends on what the person's actual deeds were that were you could consider
Sure.
evil or misplaced, and where is the penance? What is the penance that they're paying, or like what is the reconciliation of that? I mean, because those can obviously be completely sort of not on the same level. There are tons of people. There are awful people.
Genuine?
What?
Or are they just genuine and wanting to, like, do you buy that they really want the redemption, that they want to change? That could be enough too. They don't have to necessarily suffer, right?
So that is a great question, and that was another one that so again, sort of going around landmines with Handmaid's Tale. They did something really impressive in the last 2 episodes. The episode previous to the one that I just watched, there is a character that we're kind of seeing go through this. We're getting ready for the torture of this person that we've kind of maligned, right? We start seeing the pieces put into place that, they're gonna fucking get their comeuppance, and we start to get bloodthirsty for it, right? And then they pull out a redemption episode that is done largely for another character to go through an arc, for a character to go through the idea that they are not malicious, they don't want revenge, they are not going to sink to the depths that this person would maybe have done, and they're going to forgive them. And then at the end of the episode, someone else throws this person under the bus instead. And the fans got pissed. And it was literally a 2-week separation. The fans wanted this moment to happen. This episode happens that gives them perspective from just a single character, and then they rail against the character that does what they were all clamoring for. And I think that is a fascinating way to look at these things in a similar way that when you talk about something like Better Call Saul, there's this idea that we think we want these certain things in some properties. We think we want to see Anakin become Darth Vader and become the badass and see this evil Vader. But then there's also sometimes, if it's done really well, we know this is coming. We know that they're going to make this turn, and we don't want it to happen. And I think they do that expertly in Better Call Saul.
Well, it's just playing against human nature, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not. Ultimately, you're probably just propping up. But instead of playing into an audience's perception or into sort of their collective mindset, you say, well, let's contextualize it first, so it makes you think more. But the thing is a lot of people are dumb when they watch this shit, and they're just like, nah, I don't like that, and it's like they don't even think about why they don't like it.
Well, and what I thought was so interesting with Handmaid's Tale is it really it hit me to the core of kind of what this conversation is, which was basically there's sometimes we want, we sit there and we fantasize about this revenge idea, right? And we want this punishment, and we want people to have to atone for these things. And then you find yourself in a room with that person and it becomes real, and you are a good person, and all of a sudden that part of you kicks in that's like, no, like that's not going to satisfy me. It's not, that revenge thing isn't going to make me feel whole, which that's a trope that's done constantly in movies and television. But it is interesting in this conversation where you're trying to figure out why do we allow characters to get away with certain things, or what do we want? There's the idea when it's a black and white villain. Yes, we want them to die or be, get their comeuppance. And then there's sometimes where it's like, it's unsatisfying that they don't. You look at someone like Negan, right? Negan is this deplorable person, and then who's going through this redemption arc, and you think, and your first instinct is to say, no, fuck him. Fuck, he did these terrible things. These people all witnessed it. But then I go into the real world where we live in a state where we're trying to make sure that felons who have done their time and done their penance get out and have rights when they get out, and have rights specifically to vote. That's something I believe in where we are now. That is a Negan arc, right? Like, Negan deserves to vote if he does his time and he does his thing. And makes...
That's a bit of a stretch, because I don't think that there are a
bunch
of guys who are walking around being guys heads in with baseball bats. Yeah,
I have 500 bumper stickers that says Negan deserves to vote.
Those
I'm
guys
going to
are,
really try to hawk now.
Those guys are lifers. I'm pretty sure.
I wonder who he'd vote for. I think that there is no government in a zombie apocalypse, Matt. I don't think that no one is running for anything except for from zombies.
Nick, I could make so much money on Negan deserves the right to vote. But I pivoted. But Ben, go ahead.
I was going to run away from it really quick, just for a second, because I understand the argument you're trying to make too. But I want to also just kind of bring it back to the base establishment when you're talking about just as a concept, redemption. I don't always. A lot of times, I actually pride myself on just trying to think of my own film knowledge and go back and say, like, I'm going to list every redemptive story in this case that I possibly can. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to Google it this time, and I'm going to see what other people say redemptive stories are. And there were movies popping up where I was just like, that's not a redemptive story. That's not a redemptive story. That's not a redemptive story. And then I realized that I think that people have different definitions of what redemptive actually fucking means. So,
like Shawshank didn't get redeemed; he just escaped from prison.
He escaped from prison. He never did anything wrong. Now, here's the one thing:
Red is the redemption. It's not him. It's Red.
That's the argument.
What about Red Dead Redemption?
Damn it!
Or you could say the fact that or you could say that Andrew Dufresne was also upset the fact that he was a bad husband, and that he was. That's what his redemption was from that. But still, the fact that the movie is called, or the book is called The Shawshank Redemption is kind of weird, and I think also like off-putting, because then I asked my wife, what's a redemptive movie? She said Rudy. I was like, how the fuck is Rudy a redemptive movie? I was like, what? Rudy is an underdog movie.
He redeemed short people.
And then she came back. She was like, well, what about Never Been Kissed? I was like, kind of a redemptive movie, maybe, because she's lying to everybody about her age.
The statutory rape movie?
No, well, I guess did that happen there too?
But anyways, if you actually look in the dictionary, an act of redeeming or atoning for a fault or mistake, or the state of being redeemed, or deliverance from sin, salvation, or atonement for guilt. So that means something.
Because
that
he
means
was innocent, he didn't. He was innocent, so he couldn't even atone.
Right,
that's right.
Exactly.
But
so I'm saying movies where people get like in somebody on all these websites they list the Count of Monte Cristo. I'm like, that's a fucking revenge movie. That is not a movie about atoning for sins. That is a movie about being a good person and then literally sinning. To get your fucking revenge. It's the exact opposite. It's the inverse of an atonement movie.
Well, I do like though. I like the idea of Red. So Red is a murderer, right? Like
is Atonement a redemption movie?
Atonement is 100% an anti-redemption movie because it doesn't fucking happen. It's all fake. Spoiler alert.
We have spoiled Atonement like many times on this podcast.
Atonement, the movie doesn't happen, which I fucking hate as a construct, but that movie is still exceptional to me. It's so good.
Well, and I think Red
redeemed itself.
Red as a character I like from it because I think that people forget about it.
By the way, I was joking. Atonement is definitely a redemptive movie, but just because the main characters literally change in the middle of the movies, and they are like, because there are 3 acts, and in the middle act they're like, I did awful things, and they're trying to they've literally gone through the whole process of changing everything about themselves in order to atone for their past. So yes, it is absolutely.
Well, they learned the lesson from Shawshank. If you're going to have a word in the definition of redemption in the title of your film, you better have atonement.
By the way, it's a synonym. I'm surprised there is not a movie just called Redemption.
I mean, it's used a lot as like a town name, like Salvation, and like that kind of shit. But
sorry,
I
Redemption, Oklahoma.
I do. I think so. Red was a character that very much was on my list before even kind of looking into the stuff. I didn't even think about it from the title of the movie, which I'm dumb sometimes.
Only Guilty Man in Shawshank.
But yeah, like I like the idea that he is a murderer. Well, it happened when he was young, and they do kind of sugarcoat's not the right word, but they make it pretty easy to root for Red. But the idea is that this is a man who's a lifer in prison who committed a crime, who does his time. And to the point at which where he almost doesn't leave because he just tells him, like, I'm not fucking rehabilitated. Like, that when he has that whole speech, what does rehabilitation mean? I don't fucking know what you're talking about. Like, it's good.
Well, I feel like his atonement is basically I mean, would Tim Robbins have made it out of there? Would he have been able to find the mental fortitude to get through that without him? And no. So
would Red have gotten out without Tim Robbins? Like I think there is a mutual
but
thing.
Tim Robbins didn't need to atone for anything, and he did.
Yeah,
but he was there to help Morgan Freeman.
But I mean, you'd be surprised if you go online, just search redemptive movies, like one that showed up
in the title.
One of them that showed up on multiple lists. No, like I said, you have a point there that you could just say, okay, the Shawshank Redemption is about Red. That's fine. No, most people aren't gonna understand that. A movie that showed up on multiple lists was like Jerry Maguire. I'm like, what the fuck?
Really?
I was like, Jerry Maguire.
I don't disagree with that.
He's the jerky, career-consumed guy who then turns.
He's the career-consumed guy that went against his own instincts at the beginning of the movie to create something because he was like, "This is what we need to do: less clients, less money, more personalized time," and that's the thing that wrecked his fucking career. So he basically stuck by him sticking to his values. But the values that he established literally in the first 4 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, but there's a whole career that happens before the first 4 minutes in the movie. The same as Tony Stark, right? We get 5 minutes of Tony Stark being an asshole before he starts his redemption arc.
So that's what I was going to say, though. I think the best redemption arc movies or the best redemptive movies are the ones where we're thrown right into it, where it's established that this character has been a very bad person, has been an asshole.
Screen, just like I'm saying.
And then we're watching them try to reconcile their lives based off of that. I've got some great.
Let's hear it.
The Wrestler. Fantastic one. I think a really underrated kind of comedy horror one, The Frighteners, which is Michael J. Fox.
For a second, I thought you were calling The Wrestler a comedy horror, which I thought was amazing.
No, and what I think is the best redemptive movie of all time, not like I've ever mentioned on this podcast before, but Paris, Texas, of course, is the number one redemptive movie of all time.
By the way, a lot of listeners writing in about how they're really into Paris, Texas.
I really highly doubt that, but yes.
It might be over-exaggerating that.
Yes.
No, I think, like... It's interesting, and I think there are also smaller redemptive stories. And
no, I mean, like Han Solo is a redemptive story. I mean, like in the first Star Wars.
But I mean, like even lower stakes of something like looking at Schitt's Creek, right? And you can talk about everyone in Schitt's Creek maybe having redemption arc, but specifically to me, the Alexis character in Schitt's Creek has one of the most kind of amazing just turns for a character that is so one note, so just completely two-dimensional for a couple of seasons, and then just starts this slow burn into becoming an actual human being that by the end of the series makes these choices that are difficult, that are against everything that the old version of her would have done.
Here's the thing about Schitt's Creek. No, I think that happens with literally every character in that show.
I agree, but I think she's
just to a different level. And so, because I think that they're all just super unique, insufferable characters, but in the way that like something like Always Sunny, where it was just like, nope, they're always going to be that way, and they're always going to be just completely, defiantly, just belligerently idiotic and awful, is that every single season they all grew so much.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
And you come to love them for who they are and who they've evolved to be. Like both of them, both who they started to be and who they became.
Well, and there's always a satisfaction to watch these characters, especially when they're like tempted with something that would be the opposite of kind of what they originally would have been. Like the idea that you have these characters that are about the money, about the things, and you have this end of the series where she gets offered a bunch of money from a character. She can have her old life back. She can go back to that thing that she's been like trying to get back to this whole time, and she's like, no, I don't think that's not my path. My path is this new thing that I've started.
Exactly. It's a smaller redemption arc, but still a redemption arc. I completely agree with that.
And I think that's so. Nick, what do you have in terms of some of yours?
I want to ask you a question first. So I agree with Ben that like the way I would handle if my goal is to have a redemption arc for a character, I'm definitely having the transgression off screen. I'm hitting the ground running.
I would star Brendan Fraser as a 600-pound guy trying to reconnect with his daughter.
That is true. But honestly, it's a little bit because it's a little easier. Like I mentioned before too. Game of Thrones took the hard road. They showed Jamie Lannister push Brandon off the tower, intending fully to murder him, and that no one would ever know, and just go on with his life. And you mentioned, Matt, that he was never gonna make it. So
he crippled him too. Like it's even almost worse. Like
almost worse. So where do you stand with Jamie Lannister's redemption arc?
Did
he redeem himself?
Well, first of all, if we go by what they did in the show, no, he fell right back into his old patterns. But let's say he goes where he should have gone, where his character
take out
seemed to
season
be
8. Yeah, take out season 8.
So if we say that, I love the actor, I love the performance, and I don't know. I don't. I don't.
Comes close. He comes close.
Comes
and that's
real
because
close. But
we see a lot from not only the character, but the writing, how they set things up. They show him making choices. They see him. He's constantly going against choices he would have made in the first season.
Yeah.
He's putting his money where his mouth is.
I intend to fight for the living. I mean, even there at the beginning of season,
and he paid a penance with losing his hand. So you have that part of the formula.
So that and that's where I'm super hypocritical on this note because it's exactly what I said I liked about the Alexis character in Schitt's Creek, and it's what I somewhat bristles me with Jamie Lannister is that sometimes I feel that like a character hitting rock bottom before they redeem or they have to have so much taken away from them also makes me feel like what if they didn't have things taken away from them yet they still did a good thing. And I kind of see that a little bit with somebody like Tony Stark, right? Like Tony Stark doesn't necessarily lose anything. He just gains perspective based on what he sees around him, and he listens to the characters and the people in his life that he cares about. The idea that Steve Rogers says to him, "You're not the guy that jumps on the grenade that makes the sacrifice play," that's ringing in his head when he makes his ultimate decision to snap and end his life to save everyone else.
But I think that's the whole thing is Tony Stark really isn't a redeemed character until he actually does that choice at the very end.
Well,
he's just a long play redeemed.
You could also argue that it happened slightly before that snap because he finally has a good thing going with his family.
Yeah.
Finally has a good thing going with his family. Love you 3000. And he, becomes unavailable because he has to invent time travel, and he's consumed again. And Pepper Potts, is like, okay, she kind of gets it, but he becomes absent again after. And that was the thing about the snap; it was a gift and a curse because what happened is the first time he was able to finally this is my purpose. This is my purpose to have a family and be a father, and I can at least take some joy from that. And then that was taken away. So
I so agree with that. I think you're dead on with that. And I think,
yeah.
And you watch that character. He admits to that in Civil War, which I love, where he says that really great moment where they're going to sign the Accords, where he and Steve are in there, and he's like, "I did this, and then Ultron, and then this," all enlisting all every time. I couldn't stop because I didn't want to stop. There's this compulsion in him. That makes a very satisfying redemption arc for me because you're really watching someone struggle who has a lot to lose, and I think that's the difference, right? So you look at somebody like Jamie Lannister who hits this rock bottom and then kind of claws their way back up and becomes a better person, but they have nothing to lose at that point. Jamie Lannister is basically just hanging on for his life. And I like a character that really has their redemption comes at a cost for them.
What about Yondu?
Oh, I think that's a great one.
That's a really good one.
I love it.
But what did he really lose? He's kind of estranged from the Ravengers. He has no family other than the Guardians, who he only kind of really starts to like the second film. He kind of was a miserable son of a bitch. I kind of got the impression that he was happy to chuck out if it meant finally getting some of the red off. And Black Widow has get the red out. When you look at redemption arcs, it's so prevalent in comic books because it is such a powerful device. Because you go on a journey with a character that maybe none of us are perfect, so we can relate to.
Or this character was an assassin, or they killed this many people, or they did this many bad things. Yeah, no, I mean
it comes with the territory with heroes, but then there's also just this device that's used all the time. Anti-heroes in comics are huge now. There's
Sure.
so much crossover. Someone starts off as a villain like Rogue, and then turns to be a good guy. Venom turns into a good guy essentially. That's a big. Almost a crutch in comics is
Sure.
so prevalent, but it just goes to show it really is a powerful tool. If you can relate, maybe you haven't killed anybody, but you can relate to doing something wrong and maybe wanting to get accepted again or right your wrongs, and going on that journey with a character is the easiest way to do that. Make you feel like that.
And I think this is also where you talk about creatives and how they craft these characters and how difficult it is. And you look at, so I would argue this is I'm sure I'm leaving probably better or more important things out of it, but I would argue the most popular redemption arc, the most well-known or widely regarded, is probably
Christmas Carol.
God, that's a really great.
Schindler's List?
No, Christmas Carol is like way better than I was going to say. But fuck, God damn it, Nick. That is 100% the number one answer. Number one answer. Oh, shit.
Christmas Carol.
I
Are
was
you talking about a movie? Can I guess
Yes.
one of two things?
Sure.
It's A Wonderful Life or Schindler's List.
No. God damn it.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna say Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker.
Oh,
I
no.
think
Yeah,
that
that's
for
great.
pop culture, probably the introduction to that thing for a lot of people is watching Darth Vader in the original trilogy and him decide to destroy the Emperor and to sacrifice himself and take off the helmet and wants to look at Luke with his own eyes.
Sure,
all
it's
that
a
shit.
pop culture redemptive moment.
Yes.
For sure.
But that was all he did. He was killing people and ruling
Yes.
up until that exact
Exactly.
moment.
Right, and that's the reason why I almost kind of discredit it. It's just because it's a great as a plot mechanic device at the end of a movie, but until then, Darth Vader has been a villain, as far as you know. Like
Been a monster. Yes.
you knew, and you know,
Younglings, bro.
Yeah.
Younglings.
Well, we know. So that's
I'm
also
just talking
where
the original trilogy.
Well, and I think that's where Lucas also loses the thread in the prequels as well. Is that we don't have that feeling that I get watching Better Call Saul, right? In Better Call Saul, you're waiting for like it started off, right? The first several seasons, everyone is just like, we can't wait to see Saul Goodman on screen. We can't wait to see him pulling his old shenanigans, all this shit. And they played it out so long that when it came, you were like, fuck, I didn't want it to happen. I knew it was going to happen. And they even do it with a scene that if you put that scene in Breaking Bad before you've watched any of Better Call Saul, we'd be like, fucking Odekirk's hysterical. Like, this day in the life is like, Saul Goodman at home is fucking like one of the most like hysterical, so funny, this character, and what a slob, and blah, blah, blah. And by the way that they do it in that show, that they this inevitable train wreck that's going to happen, and all of a sudden when it hits you and you go, fuck, I didn't want this. I think that's the thing that's missing really hard from the prequels that could have made what we see in the original trilogy so much more meaningful.
It's what they were trying to do with the younglings.
Yes.
I mean, they were trying to do all of these.
But there wasn't enough of the, like, there wasn't like, I never felt the struggle with him that would have made that redemption feel like something.
It was poorly written.
Like, yeah, and I think that's such a there's an opportunity when you do these things where you know where a character's going. Like, even Jaime Lannister, right? Like, you know that at a certain point this character is making this turn. And it all comes down to
Actually,
how
no,
write.
you don't. You can do whatever the fuck you want to because those
True.
books have not been written.
True. That's true. But I mean, I think maybe I'm reading into that because you I think you said it to me after the first episode, and you're like, he's my favorite character in the book. I'm like, the fucking child murderer? Are you kidding me? Like, what if that was your kid?
Because he's an exceptionally well written character in the books.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of this is that we want to see these multifaceted sides of people, and we want to believe even the worst
And
person
then they
has
want to
good
see
in them.
them. Then they want to see them die with their sister because some bricks fell over.
Well, yeah, and I think that's whether or not Vader works or doesn't. The idea is that it works for Luke, right? The arc for that character is more Luke saying, "I believe there's good in you. I believe that you are worth redemption." And I think that's where that is Vader's redemption. It comes from someone believing in him, believing that he can be better than who he is. I think that's a great part of redemptive arcs is this idea that someone is not ready to be redeemed, but someone else believes in them.
Just surrender your heart to Christ.
Oh my god! Was that in Star Wars?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh, this is Lion Witch and the Wardrobe all over again for me. Those books are about Jesus. I still love those books.
I thought it was about Turkish
I had no
delights.
idea. That was just a lion.
Turkish delight. I still remember the first time I ever had Turkish delight. I was just like, this is fucking disgusting.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's not that good.
Just
Not that
terrible.
good.
It's the worst.
There's
no redemption arc for Turkish delight.
No, there is not. Never. I think I have a redemptive arc coming up pretty soon.
Let's hear it. Is it your character in She-Hulk?
I thought you meant you personally. I was just like,
No, yeah, me personally.
What did you?
Me
what,
personally.
What are you atoning for?
I was laughed at and ridiculed
boy.
and called a madman when I suggested Liam Neeson would be great in a comedic role in the lead. You all laughed at me. Liam
just got
Neeson
cast.
was just cast to do the reboot of The Naked Gun. A like slapstick comedic lead.
But
presumably.
well, no. The lead in Naked Gun, the way it works is that he is played completely straight. He does not play for comedy. That's the only reason it will work.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see.
But yes,
anyway,
you are
Liam Neeson, comedic superstar.
This rip-roaring comedy starring Taken and Schindler List's Liam Neeson.
And now we are.
Second Schindler's List reference tonight.
Well, I mean, we have to talk about Schindler's
that is
List
a great
because
redemption arc.
Schindler's List is, but also one of the ones
yeah.
that actually happens on screen. You actually see the evolution. So kind of against the rules of what you said you would prefer to do, Nick. And I actually have a couple more that I'd like to bring up on
hear
that
some
one.
more of these examples.
American History X is a really good one, although it does a really good job of doing flashbacks.
Yeah.
That
is a hard.
that one-
That's a hard one to watch.
Hard watch. Groundhog Day is a definitely a movie about it's about
Redeeming Bill Murray's terrible behavior in the past.
Yeah,
Can we
totally.
Groundhog Day the real Bill Murray and fix him?
Oh God.
Nobody's ever going to be able to fix Bill Murray. Bill Murray's a flawed individual. At this point,
Yeah.
I've just been like, unless it's something really bad comes out about Bill Murray, I'm just like, we've always known Bill Murray was an asshole. So it's
And that's how he's been able to get away with this bullshit this whole time.
Well, it's kind of true.
Nick, do you think he could be redeemed?
He probably has been redeemed.
Do you think
Because-
that
I mean,
Kevin
he's not been
Spacey could be redeemed?
Well, in the eyes of the law, I suppose.
That's not,
I think he wasn't he acquitted? Today?
Yeah.
he just got
That's
acquitted
what I'm
for
saying.
something today, but yeah, that's
That's what I'm saying. In the eyes of a law, perhaps. But no. I think that Bill Murray would have to stand up and take a stance and own up and do something to actively change the culture. Use his power to.
If he throws,
But he wouldn't.
If he throws Bill Cosby down one of the ventilation shafts, do you think
It's a start.
It's a start. Okay. Shit.
So I have one more that I think
Yeah.
is a really good one that I did not see listed anywhere.
don't
It was
toot
one of
your
the,
own
it was one
horn
of the-
or anything.
It was one of the first things that popped in my head as far as like great redemption arcs.
The Alien Queen.
Is the movie
Schindler's List.
starring and directed by Robert Duvall, The Apostle. No,
What is that?
I've not seen it. Not seen it.
Wait, what is that sound? Is that me?
that's you. What is that sound?
What are you talking
No,
about?
it is not me. I don't know what it is.
What are you talking
It's
about?
not me.
I think it's.
There's music playing in the background. Can you not hear that?
Is that
Where-
you, Nick?
Where is
No.
it coming from?
I put myself on mute to test there for a second there.
I think it's. I think it. Can you hear this? I think it's.
I can't hear it. What's going on?
I can feel the music in the. I think I accidentally got computer stop. No, where is this coming from?
What the fuck is happening?
It was hyperactive by Thomas Dolby. Somehow got activated on my phone. And I couldn't figure out where it was coming from.
Good call, though, on Thomas Dolby.
I'm so sorry. I thought I was going crazy, and I thought, Nick, you were doing a gag. So I was like, Nick, just turn your thing off, and then he muted it.
I thought I really just wrecked your guys' brains by saying The Apostle, the Robert Duvall film and vehicle, The Apostle.
That is a great redemption arc.
Matt blinded us with inconsideration.
So, Nick, you never saw The Apostle?
No.
No, I mean, it was one. It was a
I've
best.
never seen any of them. Mark, Paul, Luke, John.
Christ.
It was.
Wait, were there?
It
how
was a
many were
nominee.
there?
It was a nominee for Best Picture. There
I
were
think
11
there were-
apostles.
I thought there were 6
I
times
don't
2. I thought there were 12. Shit.
No.
Anyway. Yeah.
Six, you say?
Yeah,
So in The Apostle, Robert Duvall, he also directed the film, plays the main character who literally kills a dude with a baseball bat and then disappears from the town, but then becomes like a preacher in this really small southern town but that's the whole movie, is he's this like, he's inspiring this whole town or whatever, and just becomes this completely different, like basically just, it's a hand your life over to the Lord sort of thing. Like that's what he does as his penance of killing this dude and disappearing and changing his name. And then he gets found, of course. But it's a great movie. It's really good.
do you think there are any scenarios that you can't write your way a redemption arc around?
I mean, I don't want to bring the podcast down.
Rape and incest?
Yeah.
Jamie Lannister! Are you fucking kidding me?
No. I'm in at the same time. Oh shit, that applies.
It does apply! He tried to kill a kid, he raped, incest, he does everything! I don't fucking, that's why I asked, what is the line?
By the way, I
What
didn't.
are you
I
doing,
never
Step
said.
Bro?
I never said. I was the one who said that Jamie isn't a redemptive character. I say he was my favorite character because he's in the books. It's a completely different thing.
Oh boy.
It's like saying Darth Vader is my favorite fucking character in Star Wars. That's perfectly
It's not
fine.
like
It's okay
that.
to say that. Yes, it is.
There's incest in Star Wars.
I know! Ben's really onto the incest and child murder.
Are you saying you haven't watched a property and saying that the bad guy is the most interesting thing about that and your favorite character in
yes.
that? Fuck you guys. Fuck you guys. Come on.
I didn't say that. Come on.
I do. I just was raising a point. I feel that good writing can write the way around.
If you rewind this episode, I literally said 3 times under my breath.
Benjamin Wilson of sound mind and pro rape and incest.
Jamie Lannister is not a redemptive character. I've said that 3 times.
Yeah, I got you.
Rewind the tape. Fucking play it back. I said it
All right.
3 times.
3 times, he said.
Well, I do also like that they have leaned into that same idea in House of the Dragon, and that no one, save for maybe one
Exactly.
character, is worth of redemption.
That's
at all.
That's because literally there's no one worth of redemption in most of Game of Thrones. The only pure characters that you could say that they all have somewhere where they go completely dark. Like the thing is like, for example, in the Game of Thrones and the book series, the first two and a half books, Arya is a pure character, and then Arya goes fucking dark.
And think about what led her to that point.
Trauma.
And those
a
people
shitload of trauma.
Yeah, and I think what it comes down to, and Matt, you alluded to this before too, right? You can kill someone, that's bad. But if you traumatize them and leave them alive, that's very, I feel like you can redeem yourself from a murder under the right circumstances, but you're never going to redeem yourself if you cause the trauma in the life of a person, especially a child.
Well, and I think I think that also draws into the whole Negan thing as well, is that he's not only commits murder, he traumatizes multiple people by committing those murders.
Exactly.
And
a big part of it.
Oh,
absolutely. Because that whole series relied on gratuitous violence and murder, but not like that. Not huddled in a circle, in a dimly lit parking lot in a zombie apocalypse.
So I have a very serious question for you guys.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
Who has the bigger redemptive arc? Is it Jean Valjean or Javert?
Javert.
What is Jean Valjean?
A loaf of bread.
Stealing a loaf of bread. That's his.
Exactly, but he admits to being a criminal, but exactly. So he has a smaller transgression, so he's a smaller journey back. Javert is hard from one way to the other.
Yeah, I mean
He's Javert, right?
I think that's the Shawshank Redemption again. Like I don't think that Javert is a story of redemption for himself at all. I don't. I feel there's more redemption
You don't think
for
him finally going against all of his principles and letting Jean Valjean go, and then
No,
Javert.
Javert.
No, Javert. I think I agree with Javert. I think Jean Valjean is a non-redemptive arc, and that he is a good human from beginning to end. He just he does
the
something
analogy is that's like Shawshank. You know, the main character there's nothing to really
100%.
atone for.
No,
I no rational person would say that Jean Valjean had a lot of like, you know, atoning to do just to feed his starving family.
Yeah.
No, it was the exact opposite. He was doing what he had to do, and Javert is the one who actually has some sort of change within the context of the story.
Yeah, and Javert's kind of, you know, similar to looking at somebody like Severus Snape in kind of what the redemption arc is there. Although there's someone I got into like a really big argument with somebody on, and it was like, I think it was on.
Were you arguing with somebody online?
I was, and it was in a weird place too. I think it was on a Better Call Saul subreddit
page,
and I started arguing about Severus Snape with this guy that was like, he's awful he's never good and he never does anything, and I'm like, well, no, he's a gray character, and I think those are also some of these characters that can.
Great French fries.
I was just about to say it. Oh my god!
You channeled the Bud's energy for that.
I all of a sudden I thought about fried chicken for the first time in a long time.
Ben's gonna be hitting Buds on the way home tonight.
They got cod too.
I still can't swallow that. I don't think.
Well, we'll blend it up for you. But yeah, I you know, Snape is another one of those. Is an interesting character that is honestly not a good person. And even in their redemption is sort of, you can describe it as maybe too little, too late, or whatever it is. It's someone that sacrifices a lot, but also is a dick. Like, and I think that's also kind of interesting in some of these characters, is that you have these people that are trying to make up for doing something bad, but they also continue to still operate in a very gray, assholey area. There's a little of Tony Stark kind of in that idea as well. Is it someone that is working to actively be better, but still like being a dick through a lot of it.
Well, and you know, here's the thing. I kind of feel like personally on my personal scale, right? Especially in film, not in real life. But if you just sort of in a moment of clarity, right? Darth Vader, you give your life, Yondu, to save the greater good, right? That's almost easier. You know, think about Black Widow. Think about Natasha and Clint, right? They're fighting to get the Soul Stone. Both of them want to be the ones to die because Natasha
it'll wipe their slate clean.
They both believe like they deserve to.
Yeah,
and they both desperately want to. But now Natasha is gone, right? And that was my favorite part about the Hawkeye series. Is now, you know, Clint isn't going to just throw himself off a cliff and be done. He has a family. Now that the whole Infinity War is over, he's got to roll up his sleeves and redeem himself, you know, the hard way. And if they continue to keep him in the MCU for any much longer, where are the words? For a meaningful amount of time before Haley takes over, right? That is going to be a huge part of his character, because they're probably going to want to see him off with a redemption arc as well, and he's definitely not there yet.
Yeah, and he's but his is also part of it's not just that he's got to keep going on. He's also has to keep going on knowing that she did the sacrifice, and now he can't now do that like so easily. It's not even just his family, it's her, and that's tied into that series a lot of him thinking constantly about her and having that PTSD about her.
That was my favorite part of that series. It's
a great series.
Stuck with me the most is you know, when you talk about trauma, we've seen a little bit how the Winter Soldier is still coping, and we're seeing how characters are moving on past Infinity War, past in Endgame, right? And I think that's really, I think it's just really interesting. It's kind of a cool analogy because you have people who are snapped who didn't have to live that 5 years, just back into the fray. They don't have the same experiences. They don't have the same memories. People are dealing with it all in a different way, and it's just this cloud of trauma before they can move on.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't know. I find those little moments kind of the most.
I thought you were talking about Hawkeye.
I am talking about Hawkeye.
Oh, I personally just like the Christmas music.
I like that too.
I just like Rogers the Musical. But
which by the way, another Easter egg that I love in She-Hulk was that you see a billboard of Rogers the Musical.
When she's like about
so
to bang
funny.
Matt Murdock.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, New York gets it first, and then LA gets it months and months later.
I also fucking love the double standard of the fucking asshole fanboys with Murdoch and her banging, be like, this is not. I'm like, no, this is 100% in character for him and for her. And the fact is, Matt Murdock is the biggest slut in the MCU. Maybe second to old Tony Stark, but like early Tony Stark.
Not.
Oh, but he's a giver.
Oh, he is. Do you remember when they cut out Zack Snyder's scene where Batman went down on Catwoman, and then DC's note was heroes don't do that? Matt Murdock, you want to take bets, gentlemen?
He can hear everything that he's doing and exactly what's working and what isn't. Matt Murdock knows when she's faking, and he course corrects, and he fixes it.
I may be blind,
you know what, though,
but my
Matt,
tongue.
You're right. The thing is, though, Matt, you're right. You're 100% right. And that is what makes, because he knows not only how to make you feel the best physically by listening, like you're literally listening to your body, but he listens to your heart. He knows how you're feeling. If you're trepidatious, he needs to make you feel more comfortable. He is the ultimate sexual partner.
I watched him surf Hell's Kitchen. He can surf a woman for sure.
Unless it's Mel Gibson, What Women Want.
Unless it's Mel Gibson, period.
Period. That's
Directed by Peggy Marshall.
Oh no!
Oh
God.
dear! Oh dear!
That was a callback. Sorry.
Well, Ben's redemption arc is gonna take a lot to come back
callback.
from that with Penny Marshall. But yeah, I thought this was an interesting conversation. I'm very glad to have heard both of your opinions on this, because it clearly comes down to writing, casting, performance, but largely writing. I mean, I think we forgive a lot based on actors and actresses and being likable. Like Steve in Stranger Things is a great example that, yeah, he becomes better in season 2 and 3, but he's kind of an awful human being in season 1 until but he's so likable in general that we're like, oh, we're gonna switch. Like literally the writers just changed his role mid-season because they liked him.
Apparently they were supposed to kill him.
Yeah
They're
like, no, this guy's like he's got such good hair, how can we kill his hair? We can't.
It's like Urkel.
Yeah.
They got a hit in their hands.
And they were like, if we kill him this season, then next season Nick Sacroce can't randomly run into him at Jumbo's Clown Room.
Wait, did I know about this?
Yeah, you had to.
Did you tell this on the air?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't think you told me this.
No.
Yeah, what's his name? Joe
Keery.
Joe?
I know you
Yeah,
ran
Joe-
into Ryder Strong into the bar in Tallahassee or somebody.
No, he is very good friends with a circle of friends
okay.
of mine out here.
But I don't think
yeah,
I know about the Jumbo's Clown Room one.
Yeah, ran into him at Jumbo's Clown Room. It's magical.
Because his hair is amazing in person as it is on TV.
Yeah. I mean, and it's part of why it was like unmistakably him. Is that they had the Steve hair.
Yeah, you can't cosplay that very easy.
All I remember is Nick being like, yeah, it was actually really nice.
Yeah, but the thing that's a bummer is that now we know that he has the same taste in women, and I'm not going to win that. I'm not going to win that.
Wait, what?
Damaged Pixie Man.
Oh,
Pixie
stop
Dream Girls.
Wait,
Are you kidding me?
I'm just joking.
who's he dating?
The women at Jumbo's are the best jukebox in LA, best taste in music. One of them danced to a Little Shop song and is a theater nerd. It's not the same.
I was.
How dare you?
I was joking, but
How dare you? How dare you speak ill of the Jumbo's?
Their
Clown Girls?
PBR was nice and cold. I remember that.
Yeah, it was.
It was $9 beer night.
Nick is on the Jumbo's redemption tour right now. Appearing
Yeah,
to
I am actually gonna go back. I'm not hitching my wagon to the Jumbo.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to the place that Marilyn Manson frequents, and pretty much.
No, I've outgrown Jumbo. So
Oh, that makes me sad.
I'm not gonna hitch myself to that wagon anymore.
Well,
I'm surprised that Jumbo's Crime Room still exists.
it's going to redeem itself, Nick.
too.
It's going to do it, and I'm going to come out there, and we're going to go, and we're going to hit up Jumbo's. We're going to have a good time.
We'll go to Harvard and Stone first.
Dude, love the Harvard and Stone. I think that'll do it for us on the redemption stories. I think there's more to talk about on some of these other things about creatives and actors. You mentioned Brendan Fraser. He was on my list of actors that have kind of, gone away and come back. Matthew McConaughey's another one with
But
the
he has nothing to
reconnaissance.
atone for. That sweet, beautiful
This is
man.
true. This is true, but I mean, he did make some
Maybe for
clunker
George
movies.
of the Jungle.
Yeah, there's some clunker movies in there that I could, I didn't love some of those ones. But well, thank you so much for listening to The New Way. 5 more episodes and then number 200. So please get in touch with us if you want to do something or send us a message about the 200th and appear on the show. It should be a good time.
And that means less work for us.
That means, yeah, exactly. The more that you can submit, the better it is for me.
Begging you, please.
We're ready to
produce
believe you.
content.
Well, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.